So this past weekend, I went on this really neat field trip with my Democracy in Action class to the Yuba River, because we've been studying this river as a complex social issue about how the water should be managed for all these different competing interest groups. So going into this field trip, I had this one particular image in mind that I learned about of a time when the Yuba River was so densely packed with salmon swimming upstream that the Maidu people, which were the original Native Americans in that area, being able to walk across the backs of these salmon in the river to cross the water. And this was just a striking image that stuck with me and made me really eager to check out the river and see how its modern state compares to this historical state. So the first part of the trip was to go on this river expedition with a group called Circle, the South Yuba River Citizens League, to check out the ecological status of the river and see the salmon and stuff. And that was where I got to see the current state. And what I saw was totally different than this idealistic image. The river now is just this solemn little river running through these mounds of gravel on either side of the banks, rising up and creating this really austere, lifeless landscape that just doesn't look healthy or natural at all. And Circle told us about how this lower section of the Yuba was devastated as a result of hydraulic mining in the gold rush era, which was using high-powered hoses to bring down mountainsides in order to sift through that gravel to bring out gold, and in the process using mercury to bring out the gold. And so a lot of the gravel ran downstream and created these mounds, but also a lot of it was stopped by dams that were then created to mitigate the downstream harm. So then you have these dams with a lot of the gravel and mercury also accumulated. So, and then Circle also talked about how, as a result of the dams, the health of the salmon has been really detrimented. And what the dams do is that they inhibit part of the salmon's life cycle. And the salmon's life cycle starts out in their stream where they hatch from their eggs, and then they swim downstream out to the ocean, where in the ocean they develop into these huge 40, 50-pound fish with teeth and like really monstrous things. And then they swim around for a few 100,000 miles, and they swim all the way up back to their natal stream, like the native stream that they grew up in, and spawn, and then they die. And once they die, they give the nutrients that they brought from the ocean to the land around the river. But the dams inhibit their ability to get all the way upstream. So Circle is worried that there are going to be collateral environmental effects of the salmon not being able to deliver ocean nutrients to the surrounding land. So that was a really neat part of the trip, because we got to really be with ecologists and biologists who were clearly passionate about the ecology and the health of the river and the salmon, and who are on a daily basis, digging their hands in the mud, getting dirty with this issue, and getting out there and educating people like us on the river about the ecological side of the issue. So the next part of the next group we investigated in terms of the relationship to the issue was the Maidu. And the Maidu are the Native Americans who originally inhabited the Yuba River, and throughout the settlement period were persecuted by the white men and nearly exterminated and uprooted from their homeland. But the Maidu have a really beautiful culture in which they consider the environment and the animals in the environment in a unique way. They see them all as different beings, and that there's a balance that needs to be maintained between the humans and nature on a spiritual level. And the man who described this to us was a man named Jason Ryberg, he's a leader in the Maidu community today, and he told us about how his personal story led him to his understanding of his culture. And he started out by telling us that he never really would have expected him to be in the position he is today because of the struggles he experienced through his life. Because he started out growing up in a poor house with a family that was falling apart, and he saw himself going down the wrong track in life. But he made it a point to pay some tribute to his ancestors, who he saw has struggled to preserve the culture and to really allow him to be here today. So that was a point where he saw he needed to go on some quest, and this quest was a spiritual quest to establish a connection with the salmon. So in his journey, what he did was during the salmon runs each year, he go out in the river, sub 40 degree waters, and wade in the river in just shorts, singing a river song to try to establish a connection with the salmon. And he'd do this for days on end, and for years and years he struggled with the fact that he was just not reaching some connection, until finally, one day when he was out there doing his song and probably freezing his feet off, a salmon who he was fishing gave itself up to him to be caught. And for him, that was the moment where it all clicked. He felt this, this empowerment, this regeneration of himself, and it was super powerful for him, and the way he conveyed it was super powerful for us, because it was inspiring how he talked of this connection that he established with the salmon being a regenerative quality for his life and making him want to turn his life around in a new way, get himself on the right track, and get involved in his community and actually be a leader in his community, which he is today. So that was an incredible and inspiring story to hear about how just a fish and a species of fish can have such a profound impact in a supernatural sense on this man and on a people. So the last part of the trip was to meet with the Yuba County Water Association, which is a Yuba County Water Agency, who are responsible for managing the water. And they were formed because historically the Yuba had the tendency to flood the surrounding area and ruin the settlement, and additionally that the Yuba County is really agriculturally and economically based on their agriculture. So the Yuba County's mission is rooted in flood control and water appropriation for the farmers. And so the head of that show is named Kurt Akins, and he finds himself at the middle of this issue. But in meeting with Kurt Akins, you get the sense that he's a guy who really thrives at being in the center of issues and is really good at bringing together all these competing sides to the issue. Because that's really his job. He's got to take in input from these multiple competing interest groups and set forth some policy. So from Kurt Akins, you also get to see the political side of the issue, because for him, he has to represent the infrastructure on the Yuba, which includes the dams that were constructed as government agency projects by the Army Corps of Engineers. So even though now the dams might not serve too much of a purpose other than blocking up the mercury from getting downstream, he has to show political support to his political constituencies in Washington when talking about the dam and representing the dam, the river. So it's complex for him because he has the environmental concerns and he has the political constituencies, and he's got to balance a lot of acts. So that's his job. But in 2008, there was a real success that came out of his work, which was the Yuba County Water Accord, where flow regimes of the dams, which is the amount of water that's let through the floodgates, were established that really benefit the fish better, and also a better situation for getting water to the farmers in the area was established. So this was like a real success for him, this accord, and even though it didn't solve everyone's problems all at once, it gave everyone some benefiting aspect. And I think that's what I got out of this whole trip, is that not every competing side to an issue is ever going to get everything that they ever want if the solution is going to be solved effectively. And that you have all these different groups on an issue, and for the water, you have like the ecological understanding group and the spiritual understanding group, and then you have the social and economic understanding group of the YCWA. And where these groups intersect at a level of understanding is where the policy and solutions are made that really benefit everyone in a mutually beneficial scenario that may not give everyone everything that they want, but at least give everyone something that they need.